Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Dave Davis with Your Money Matters.
Hey everybody, we're back here again at the News on 6 digital studio to talk more about the One Big Beautiful Bill. And why? Well, it's already been signed into law by the president, but this is a massive, almost 900-page transformation of the American tax law and the American tax system. We were talking with Ashlee Hall last time. This time we're bringing in Mary Lundstedt. They do tax explaining together. You may recognize them. Ashlee Hall is from the Hall Law Group here in Tulsa, clients all over the country. And Mary Lundstedt has been a tax attorney for 2 decades now. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Mary, I asked Ashlee this last time. I'm going to ask you, in your just big perspective, how big of a transformation is the One Big Beautiful Bill from what tax law was before to what it is now? I asked Ashlee for a 10 out of 10 transformation scale. For you, what's it for you?
For me, I'm not sure that I would go too high. I'd say maybe around a 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are some, to you, what stands out the most? Obviously, we're going to get back into specific things. Today we're going to go through overtime. We're going to be talking about car loans. We're going to be talking about the 529. But I wanted to start off, Mary, if we could with you, with the Social Security Administration and the changes in Social Security benefits. So I'm just going to let you take the floor. I'm not going to set it up here. You go on the Social Security benefits here.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is such an important topic to shine a spotlight on. So I am really grateful for the opportunity to do that here. I want to put the takeaway right up front. The new law does not exempt Social Security income from taxation, unfortunately. The standard rules for the taxation of Social Security benefits still apply. All right. And the confusion over this issue, from my perspective, is completely understandable. I think it's coming primarily from 2 fronts. On the one hand, we've all heard the campaign promises to eliminate taxation on Social Security benefits, right? But then more recently, and perhaps more concerning, millions of Americans, including members of my own family, were recipients of an official email from the Social Security Administration.
And here it is right here.
Thank you, yes. Which was, to say it as nicely as I can, quite misleading. It basically parrots the campaign rhetoric to some extent, using verbiage like eliminates taxes. It even takes it a step further and tries to use some sophisticated, like 90% or nearly 90% of beneficiaries, will no longer pay federal income taxes. Language like that, right? And as I said, millions of Americans got this email, including members of my own family, and they were confused because they're thinking, okay, great. Social Security income is exempt from taxation. And it's just not. I'm sorry to say it. In fact, all of the standard rules for taxation of Social Security benefits still apply. So pre-OB3, which is the nickname I use for One Big Beautiful Bill, and post-enactment of OB3, we're in the same place. What the new law creates is a temporary, and that's through 2028 unless Congress decides to further extend it. It creates a temporary extra or bonus deduction for those who are 65 and older. But it is not Social Security specific, and that is crucial. So in other words, you can be 65 plus and not filing for Social Security and still be eligible for the same deduction. It is going to impact taxable income, including Social Security benefits, from 25 through 28, but it is not specific to that. And there is, I'm sorry to say, a real danger in operating under a misguided notion that your Social Security income is exempt from taxation. The misunderstanding there itself could actually lead to a taxpayer engaging in planning activities that result in more tax. So it's crucial to understand this. Yeah. And I won't get into the complexities of Social Security taxation here because we would all fall asleep. But generally, one can say that the higher your adjusted gross income, the higher percentage of Social Security income that gets taxed. And very importantly, the way Social Security benefits are taxed can increase your marginal tax rate. So I want to just leave everyone here with a reminder to very, very carefully continue to plan in a way to avoid raising marginal tax rates, which can exceed 40%. So, for instance, if you think, well, my Social Security income is exempt now, and you think maybe you can use this as an opportunity to recognize income without severe consequences, you know, put a pause on that thinking. Don't rush to, for example, convert pre-tax dollars to Roth at this moment without taking a breath and considering whether recognizing income in that event would actually end up increasing the amount of your Social Security benefits that are subject to tax.
Wow, that's really important information, and I so much appreciate that. Again, one more time, the email that went out, as Mary was referring to, she almost said the direct quote. I mean, the bill ensures, this is what the email says, the bill ensures that nearly 90% of Social Security beneficiaries will no longer pay federal income taxes on their benefits. And as Mary said, that is misleading. And so it's something that you really need to consider. Rewatch this segment if you missed any of that, because that is really good information. And I wanted to kind of transition, Ashlee, into the next topic that we're going to be talking about, because last time we talked about overtime tips, and this time, Ashlee, I wanted to talk about, last time we talked about tips, this time we're talking about federal tax-free overtime. So what does this mean? Does this mean all of our overtime we don't have to pay taxes on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are limitations. Essentially, there are a couple of limitations really. So there's a maximum deduction for this provision of $12,500 per person, or if you're a joint filer, so if you file with your spouse, it would be a total of 25,000 per year for the tax-free overtime. The other limitation is it's only the premium portion essentially. So the way that the provision is worded, it's essentially qualified overtime, and the way that's defined for the eligibility purposes is just that extra portion. So you know how the law states overtime has to be time and a half essentially. And so if your regular rate's $20 an hour, you're working overtime, which would put you at $30 an hour, then just that $10 an hour portion essentially potentially would be deductible. And so it's only that, it's not your entire pay for that overtime that you've worked. It's only that extra portion that your employer is required to pay you, which is essentially that half of the time and a half.
Gotcha. And so, of course, same thing with tips as we talked about last time. And if you'd like to go back on the News on 6 YouTube page, Ashlee and I had a fantastic conversation about the federally tax-free tips, and that was a big deal. And again, like Mary said, another big campaign promise. So when we're talking about overtime, we still have to keep track of this, Ashlee. It's not tax-free, and it's still really important to keep track of all of your taxable income, even if you don't have to pay federal taxes on some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is an important distinction. This is a deduction, and so you will have to report the entire amount essentially, and then you get a deduction of that premium portion of overtime, so that extra 50% up to $12,500 per individual per year. And so tracking is especially important this year because this provision is actually retroactive to January 1st of 2025. We don't have guidance yet on this from the IRS. I expect it will come to instruct us, on how to essentially track and report this going forward. But for the 2025 pay or the 2025 tax year, tracking is especially important both for the employee and the employer, because most likely if you're an employer, for example, your payroll systems your software probably doesn't have this built in just yet. And so employers they're going to have to essentially report overtime separate from regular wages. Eventually, the W-2 forms and everything else will be changed. But right now, we're kind of in this interim where everybody's going to have to rely on their own record keeping, essentially, to make sure that they maximize their available deduction for this.
Yeah, sounds like a big change. I wanted to go to the next topic because there's so many, like we said, almost a 900-page bill that's now been signed into law. So many topics. Mary, I want to turn back to you. Could you tell us about the interest on car loans and what that means now if the car is made or assembled in America? Tell me about the tax situation now with car loan interest.
Sure, I can do a high level. It's not an area I've looked a lot into, but basically the OB3 does include a new deduction for what I believe they've called qualified passenger vehicle loan interest. And it is effective, again, temporarily from 2025 through 2028. So unless Congress extends it, keep that in mind. What's in focus for this deduction? Well, it's applicable to interest on loans used to buy certain vehicles and this is important, for personal use. So this is not about business or about resale. There is a pretty broad range of eligible vehicles to think about here. New cars, vans, SUVs, pickup trucks. I'm probably missing something. Motorcycles. These are vehicles manufactured for running on public roads, and I believe they will also have to have a gross vehicle weight of something less than 14,000 pounds. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that I want to, or two things more that I'll say that are important here. I think consumers, they're going to appreciate this, but it's going to be tough for them to determine in every case if the vehicle qualifies, because one of the requirements is that it's assembled in the U.S. And the reality is, how do you always know that that's the case? I couldn't say on my vehicle if I know that right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things to keep in mind. And then I think another interesting part of this is that the new rule doesn't limit the number of loans eligible for the deduction, but it does place a cap on the total amount of deductible interest at $10,000 per year. So that's about all I think I can really contribute on this part. I'm not sure if Ashlee has any more, or if you do yourself, Dave.
Yeah, Ashlee, go ahead. Do you have anything to add to that? I think that was very well done. But Ashlee, anything else?
The only other thing I would add is there is a phase out provision, just like with many of these new tax law provisions. So it phases out for taxpayers with adjusted gross income over $100,000 for an individual, and then I believe it's $200,000 for joint filers. And so this provision is not going to be applicable to everybody, but I think those who do qualify, I think it's going to be a big boost potentially, and I think it can be really valuable. So I would just be mindful of don't go buying a new car based on this advice. Dig into it and talk to your CPA or tax professional just to make sure that you are within those limitations to take this deduction.
I mean, and it sounds like, Mary and Ashlee, that there are a lot of limitations and a lot of boxes you have to check, but in your opinion, Mary, worth it to go after it and to do all that extra work to see if you, even though we have to check a lot of boxes and we're talking about gross tonnage and personal use and bumpers and everything else, this could be a big deal.
Absolutely. And I want to go back just a bit. And I'm sorry if you heard it, but the doorbell rang and the house kind of broke into chaos there. But when Ashlee spoke about the phasing out, it is important to note with the Social Security discussion that I was just in, that's also subject to phasing out. So generally, this new temporary deduction will be $6,000 for individuals, $12,000 if married filing jointly. but they are subject to phase outs depending on the income threshold. So sorry I left that out before.
Yeah, no, that's really an important point. Finally, this conversation has just flown by, but I don't want to forget about the 529 plans. This is how a lot of people save up for their children to go to college. They can use the money themselves under certain circumstances for continuing education. Oklahoma is one of those states that has a 529 plan. My kids are both enrolled. So, Ashlee, I want to give you the floor on the 529 plan and what the new One Big Beautiful Bill, OB3, what this allows now and changes about 529 tax-wise.
Yeah, I think this is going to be important to a lot of individuals, especially here in Oklahoma, as you mentioned. But Congress did significantly expand the flexibility of these plans. And many, families already have these, as you mentioned, in place. And so historically, these 529 plans allow families to invest and grow money tax-free. And then there are certain limitations, as you know, on what the withdrawals can be used for. They have to be for qualified education expenses. Historically, this meant only college tuition, books, room and board. And I believe it was up to $10,000 per year for K through 12 tuition. But now the annual cap on the K through 12 tuition withdrawals has increased from $10,000 to $20,000 per student. That's starting in 2026. And so new qualified expenses that were not included before, or they weren't qualified before, tutoring by licensed teachers or subject experts, essentially not family members, standardized testing fees, so your ACT, SAT, AP prep, dual enrollment for college courses, therapies for students with disabilities such as speech, occupational, behavioral, physical therapy, and then also there's a career and credentialing pathway for these for the 529 plans that expands the use to tuition for non-college programs, so coding boot camps, HVAC training, nursing prep, and then your certification exams, so nursing boards, CPA exam, for example, the bar exam. I would throw that one in there selfishly. Continuing education required to maintain credentials, and so we're talking, as an attorney, for example, we have to get a certain number of hours per year of CLE or continuing legal education. Same thing for many professions. You have to, and those fees can be pretty significant each year as you're trying to get those hours. So I think overall, this is a pretty broad enhancement and expansion of the qualified expenses. And then also, as I mentioned, the cap on the withdrawals per year that has increased.
It sounds like there's a lot of certifications, testing, things that have that upfront cost that are not easy for everyone to pay to, even things like ACT prep, SAT prep. I'm sure, the bar exams, you could go on and on about how that's an investment in both time and money, and this is something that could potentially help people, Ashlee, with these upfront costs.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too, this brings in the benefit for many other individuals that maybe are not pursuing a traditional path, or they're looking for more hands-on type training where they can directly go into a career or something like that. I think it's a really important change, personally.
So finally, as we wrap up this conversation, Mary, your last thought on the One Big Beautiful Bill on OB3 and just overall what you think the implications are of this bill, just kind of writ large, like your kind of ending statement on OB3, closing statement.
I think there's a lot of positive change, but I guess at least for this particular interview, I really want people to approach it somewhat cautiously. I think the Social Security example is really the reason that I'm going for that. Like I said, my own family called very confused, and you can really wind up in some trouble if you maybe don't take what the OB3 potentially offers to a competent tax pro or a financial planner and have a real conversation with them before you maybe just put on the rose colored glasses and jump into something that might not be as great as it seems.
And finally, I wanted to give folks a chance, so you all do tax explaining together. Ashlee, tell us about tax explaining, where people can listen and how they can do that.
Yeah, we are active on LinkedIn. I know not everyone's on LinkedIn, but you can find either Mary or I individually on LinkedIn. And then we do have a tax planning page. We post a lot of breaking tax news updates, and we try to speak with an authentic voice and hold the IRS accountable. We're also on YouTube, so you can follow us there. And yeah, so we try to focus it on whether you're a tax professional or you're a taxpayer. We try to keep the content relevant kind of across the board.
Well, Ashlee Hall, Mary Lundstedt, I don't think this will be the last time that we'll be talking. This has been really eye-opening today, talking about Social Security tax implications, overtime, 529, car loan interest. This has been great, and thank you, ladies, for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next time on the News on 6 Digital Studio.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's own digital studio stream. Stay with News on 6 online and on television anytime for the latest news, weather, and sports.